shitcoin.com show. The guys sit down with guests to chit chat about crypto. It's time for the shitcoin.com show. Let's all not get tracked.
Welcome to the shitcoin.com show, everyone. Today, as always, I'm joined by Andreas Brecken, founder and CEO of shitcoin.com. And today's special guest, you might know him as the guy behind Drivechain, also a prominent Bitcoin researcher in the space, Paul Sztorc. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Always good to have you back on the show. You're a regular feature these days. You definitely pop in from time to time to talk to us about current affairs.
Yeah, well, you guys are great. I mean, I got to talk to someone. Who am I going to talk to these days?
So I guess to kick it off, Paul, it'd be great to just get a bit of an update on, what's the latest with Drivechain? Where are things at?
Drivechain's going really well. We put out new versions, so we have a version 30 of the testnet is out. People can check it out. Go to drivechain.info. We have like a downloads page. We have like a guide with screenshots. We've been trying to make it more and more user-friendly and whatnot. So I think, I hate to say that it's done because that's kind of a curse, but I do kind of feel like it is very, very close to being finished. It's all just been bug fixes for the last few months. So, and what I would like to do next is have a couple good examples of sidechains. So that would be like the next thing. Andreas, I was talking to you before about Zcash that would be kind of an interesting one because of how ambitious it is technically, but it's also a code fork of Bitcoin, as is our sidechain template. So it should be possible to like merge, it should be like doable, pretty doable thing. I mean, ideally it would just be copying and pasting a few things, wallet and transaction validation and block validation. So ideally, but of course, who knows how hard it will be in practice. But ideally, it would be very doable, but also something that is kind of very ambitious because the cryptography is very alien in Zcash. But also, the third great thing about it is that it is actually kind of useful because people do criticize Bitcoin's privacy dimension, and in particular, there are things you can do, but some of them produce the so-called toxic waste, which are these outputs that like kind of, they know that they belong to you, and now what are you going to do with them? You can't like combine them with other things. They're kind of trapped. So you could send them to this.
You can drive into the desert and take a lot of photos.
Well, what I mean is you can send the these outputs to Zcash sidechain, and it's kind of like a black hole, and fresh coins come out, and then you could take them from the sidechain back to the main chain. So this is kind of a good mix of kind of something that is doable, useful, and kind of desirable.
If you had a Zcash sidechain, would you have both transparent addresses and shielded addresses, or would you just have the shielded?
I would, because first of all, I think in general the philosophy should be that the altcoiners' ideas should just be copied kind of faithfully. I don't think it's a good idea to go down this road of being like, well, sure, Zcash is great, but let's just edit. I don't like the way they did these ZK snarks or something, and then just start editing it so that it's like some weird version of it. Should just be whatever, every command line, ideally every single command line argument or anything you do with the command line that you would do on Zcash should just return the exact same thing on the sidechain.
Oh yeah, because otherwise you can't and then you can reuse all software, including exchange implementations.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So that's one reason. The second reason is that I think it would be extraordinarily confusing to figure out how to send money in, because when money goes in and out, our sidechain template's already set up with Bitcoin addresses. Whereas if you keep the transparent ones are just Bitcoin addresses with a different like prefix or something, as I understand it.
They are.
So that would be pretty helpful to keep it. Then the transfers in and out could just be that part could be the same. And then I don't think it's a significant inconvenience. I know. I was shocked because I was just starting to do the research for this, and I was shocked that there's not a single. I don't think there's a single Zcash wallet that supports the shielded addresses. You have to run one of the two big clients. You have to run a Linux like node, or you have to run their Windows thing, their Windows like full node, in order to take advantage of them at all, which I think is funny. I mean, I'm sure there's some important reason for that.
I happen to know, yes. It's too slow to create the mathematical proof required to send shielded transactions on a phone. But the phones, but I mean, Zuko predicted this, and I asked him about this over and over the years, if phones would be able to do this. And yeah, a few years ago, he said they will, because the math is going to get quicker and the phones are going to get quicker. And we're already at the point where I'm pretty sure a phone can do it now. So
interesting.
I remember reading news on a Zcash phone thing coming out that's doing shielded.
Okay.
And I think I heard that maybe last week.
Yeah, I saw this comical list. There was like all these Zcash wallets, and there was like feature comparison. And then if you looked at like shielded addresses, it was like no. They're all no, every single one of them. Yeah. And I was like, oh, what? That was kind of funny. But,
and another side chain. I've been looking a bit the last few days on a project called Handshake, which is I guess some kind of it's a reinvention of Namecoin.
Of course, yeah.
But the team over at Purse.io and their friends at a startup called Namebase have been working on this project for a long time. So there's one thing we already know. It should not have a token. It should not have mining. I mean, that goes without saying. It happens to have both.
Well, Namecoin had them as well, which is funny. Namecoin, of course, had merge mining. Also, they had an option for merge mining. Well, I love the idea. I've always wanted like a Namecoin sidechain concept because the core idea is really good. Especially if you think of like Silk Road and the origins of Bitcoin on Onion, on the Tor network, and on how that's one can only hope that that's part of the future of the internet. It's just more people using Tor hidden services and like some way of getting it really fast. And then that would be like that's like an important thing. But in particular, you just think of like this problems that we have, like Silk Road or darknet market, Tor addresses are weird, but also you have stuff like people impersonating Elon Musk and Vitalik to like do these Twitter scams where people send these affinity scams. The fact that I have to have all these different accounts at Telegram, I have the same, I have like a Reddit name, then I have a Twitter name, and then I have a name on Telegram, and it's like, shouldn't it be possible for me to just send a thing and have it all totally integrated? And if I don't want them to be integrated, can't I just make a second or a third, or it should be like Bitcoin addresses where I can make more if I need them. And so I should just have a name, and the name should just work on everything. And I shouldn't, there's other problems with like logging in are terrible. Everyone should use a password manager that has one really difficult login, and then it does the stuff for you.
Yeah. But
this could work like that. Another obvious things about the way it works is the domain name. I think ICANN has done a phenomenal job of helping the internet grow into this awesome thing, but obviously a lot of what they do doesn't work really well or is confusing. Like, why can't anything be a TLD at this point? I mean, why are any of these limits like still in place? Shouldn't I be able to just do like drivechain.bitcoin? What I envisioned when I kind of tried to do an update of Namecoin on my blog, I was envisaging a kind of like you just have the name and then you just have some JSON, and you can just put whatever you want in there. You can put everything. You can put public key. You can put a Bitcoin address. You can put a Bitcoin stealth address. You can put a website. You can put name servers. You can put an IP address.
You're just describing Keybase now.
Yeah. But I think it should be, yeah, well, this is the thing is, I think it would be useful in a kind of blockchain situation, though, because the blockchain is this consensus thing. You could put it in a kind of Merkle tree or radix tree, and so everyone could just be like, it could be very easy because it could just be like your name. It's like a Merkle tree where stuff is sorted on, it's like, there's a great image on Wikipedia where it's sort of like, yeah, it's sort of like words that start with M. So there's like an M branch, and then there's words that start with MU, like murder and muck or something. So it's like it's branched based on the name. So you know the position.
On the alphabetical sorting.
See, exactly. So there's a sorting element. So you can prove that there's no other.
Oh, but you can guess exactly where it's going to be.
But also you can say if you're the only Andreas in the whole thing, then you'll know exactly where you'll be in the thing. So you could send nearby ones to say, this is Andreas, and then to the left of me is not some other Andreas, and to the right of me is not some other thing.
Right.
So it adds this alphabetical concept, whereas Merkle tree is kind of just random. The other thing, though, is that what I have in mind is that each just a name and a hash, and then it's up to you. You can just say, look, here's my thing, my little business card, and you can see that the hash matches. So now you can now that it's not part of consensus, you can make it as big as you want. It can have anything. It can have a photo. It can have nested things. You can have hash number 2. So you could say, here's this, but you don't get my home address until, layer 3, and then not until layer 4 do you get my medical history or whatever. You can just have all this stuff in there if you wanted. And you could change it. So I think the core idea is great. The big challenge, and I had a blog post about this, that it was like 99% done, and I just never finished publishing it. But the big problem is that if you want to do something like this, and I know Handshake is really emphasizing domain names a lot, which I think is fine. I almost think that's thinking a little too small, though. But I think that's pretty big nonetheless. The big problem is, how do you respect these two sets of property rights simultaneously? Right. You have the ICANN, everyone already bought domains, so we already set this one system up. And yet you want to have a new system, and those people have to have a right to something. So it's like, how do you balance those two? And personally, my opinion is that you should pick a moment in time and let everything that ICANN has done, all the traditional domain .com, anything that ends in .com or anything ICANN formatted that ends in .org or whatever, then it should always go to their thing. They own all of that. And then if it's anything else, then it's a new thing. So you could have like google.anarchy, and it would be like a completely different site that could be run by anyone. But if you do anything that already exists, .com, so if someone registers example 12345.com hypothetically in this new system, and it hasn't been registered in ICANN, then if someone later registers it in ICANN, they should be able to kind of claim it, because I think the ICANN one should always have a trump. This should be like a layer 2. The new thing should be like a layer 2 on top of ICANN, where anything that ICANN just doesn't resolve or didn't resolve, as that wasn't a top level domain as of March 10th, 2020, anything that didn't work there now gets kicked over to this thing. I think that's the best way.
How does it this is a question just from me, like I don't understand if in the future I can decide to have .Paul and Paul owns.
Yes, I think that's why it's very important to pick a date for that and say,
right.
ICANN has kind of teed this up a little bit by having TLDs. So just by having them, you can say, look, here's what they said. And if they put it in the future, then, forget them, because it can't be handcuffs to their decisions. Then you're screwed. But you say, look, because the whole point of this is only to make it certain that the existing happy customers of ICANN are not unhappy in your new thing. So you got to keep everyone happy. That's the game theorist's quest. Make sure that everyone is happy, because unhappy people will start a war or become a suicide bomber or something. You can't have that.
Yeah, I already asked you what you thought of the way they were doing some of the tokenomics, as they call it these days, on it.
Yes,
part of it
I can't.
is,
you have to refresh my memory a little bit, because I know
will.
good developer. Okay, then do it. Yes.
So if you have an account on GitHub that is older than a certain number of, I guess, years, and you have at least X followers, I think it's like maybe 100.
I think it's only 15.
Okay, 15. I mean, having a follower on GitHub is like having 1,000 on Twitter. Just people don't follow each other that much on GitHub. If you have that, you'll get what is today, I think, like a couple of $1,000 worth of their token. And the snapshot was already taken a while ago.
I thought there was also Hacker News, right? Wasn't there
yeah,
something like Combinator or something?
Yeah, it is Hacker News. I was just keeping it simple. I had both.
See, so that's a certain type of theory.
The reason they're doing it is because they want software developers with influence over integrating something like Handshake in, say, a browser. They want them to be involuntary bag holders. So because these developers have the GitHub account, so they already have the Handshake, they just haven't claimed it, but they can claim it in the future. So, yeah.
Well, it has properties similar to the hard fork in that way, where someone who wakes up today from a coma that started before, they were fortunate enough to miss the events of 2017 until today, and they wake up, and now they're like, everyone tells them this about BTC, BCH, BSV. They have total indifference because they own equal amounts of all of them. So this is the happiness kind of criterion that I was mentioning before. They're kind of like, oh, okay, I'm happy with whatever works. In fact, I'm happy if everything works.
Yeah.
So they have a certain theory when they emphasize GitHub accounts, not even people, because as you know, one person could plausibly have many accounts that get the thing. So they have a theory that accounts are important to the success of the project. So did they do anything about this ICANN question that I raised, about grandfathering in old names or something like that? Or no, this is like a wholesale replacement.
There is something where I think it's the first 100,000 top 100,000 on Alexa are reserved and can be claimed by anyone.
That's a good idea. So something I'm more interested in that because, but I don't know, I could be wrong about this, but I suspect it's just kind of confusing because it's kind of like what does an account mean? So if you work really hard, but you have your one GitHub account, but then the guy next to you in the cubicle he actually, for some reason, he has 8 accounts that qualify. And then you're kind of like feeling resentful. So now this is unhappiness. Everyone has to be happy, remember. And it's like, do people want the coin or what do they want? Wouldn't you rather have, so you're ranked 100,001th on Alexa. You just lost your site, and now it's like, it's sending a confusing message as well, because if you're growing your site and your site's growing very well, then you're doing great, but you miss the cutoff and someone could register your name. Now it gets annoying. So those are the areas where I really watch for, because I don't want those people to be unhappy. I want it to just be smooth sailing, pure happiness in every direction.
Sideship.ai.
Why was Trace so into something called MimbleWimbleCoin? What is it?
I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense. Many people have commented on. In fact, you saw that. I can prove that I had no idea, because you can see that not really prove, but you saw that I quoted him on Twitter because I thought he made a good point. But now, to my dismay, I discover that who knows what really motivated his point about like coin joining kind of outs you as a kind of creepy person. And so you may not want to do it for that reason. And I was like, that's right. You may not want to do it for that reason. But now it seems as though his motivation for doing that was just to make MimbleWimbleCoin look better. But yeah, this is a very confusing kind of, it doesn't really make any sense because Trace is supposed to be the super rich guy. And he didn't even shill Grin, right? Which is like the kind of project. Instead, he shilled the coin that like had this weird pre-mine. And so if he's really like handing out these pieces of paper,
that is old school. I give him credit for that.
Isn't that crazy?
It's like passing notes in school.
Passing notes in class, yeah. Pass it on. Yeah, that would have been great if it said like, pass it on or something on the note. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that he would do that. And also it would have been so unlikely to work because that was like Bitcoin Maximalist conference. So it shows this kind of total lapse of judgment that is very difficult to explain. I don't have any explanation. I mean, maybe he's really much poorer than everyone thinks, or maybe he's crazy. He's like going senile, or maybe he has been like having people kind of suck up to him for so long that his self-criticism wires in his brain died out because they weren't being used, and he needs to regrow them. It happens to people, right? That's a part of this. It's a terrible thing about if anyone who's like rich or famous or important is that you have to always wonder, like, are these people just sucking up to me? You know, is there an angle? So I don't know. It doesn't make any sense why he would do that. What is that? You know, he kind of thought that he could get away with that. Like, it makes no sense. I don't know. And if, you know, to not really get a lot of money, because I don't think he could possibly have extracted.
Yeah, I don't think the shilling went too well.
No, that's why in the discussion that ensued, we started thinking like, who is the actual Bitcoin maximalist?
Yes, well, that was
even you have held Namecoin, haven't you?
I have. Well, yeah, that's true. For research purposes, I bought it as Zcash, and then once I literally bought Ethereum Classic after it split off at the very bottom. And then I can't access it because I don't understand how I tested it, I thought, but I never like did a complete round trip test. So I bought like what it eventually would be, because I bought it at like 25 cents or whatever, the absolute lowest it could ever was. And when I did, I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. This is just a total donation because to mess with Ethereum. And it ended up being worth like some absurd amount of money, but I tried to get it, and I have saved the folder. If anyone out there is listening and they want to try and offer me 10% of my own money or whatever, I have the folder that has the passwords and the key and the directory, and I have no idea what I did, and it doesn't work. When I type the stuff in, it just says like, please enter your password, or it says like, I don't know. I put all types of different things in there to try to figure out what happened. So if anyone wants to give that a shot, you can. I don't know what Ethereum Classic is worth these days. But the real question for me is what, you know, I wanted to tweet because I asked that other question, that's that thing that really blew up about if Bitcoin maximalism was dead. And that turned into a big Twitter event. But I was saying like the only person, you know, there's only one person who can help me, which is Vitalik Buterin. He's the one who can define it again. He defined it once, and I can ask him to define it again, and then I will know what maximalism is and who it still applies to.
Because I asked Luke Dasher, and he said, no, I'm not a maximalist because sometimes I take USD as payment.
I know, that doesn't make any sense. Luke, the original meaning I thought was pretty clear. It was that, well, you have to see this. What one thing I think is happening is that new people are showing up and they don't know like the story. The story is that Satoshi did all this work to do something that everyone thought was like impossible. And he created Bitcoin from scratch. And then kind of created Namecoin, which also was like, I do think that the idea of Namecoin or of a Namecoin is a great idea, and its day will come probably soon. And then you had Charlie Lee, who copy pasted the code, which took no effort whatsoever, and he changed like 2 parameters. And then you had Litecoin. So that is, he had every right to do that. I don't know why the community put up with it at all, because I kind of regarded it as sort of insulting to Satoshi that, you know, that you could automatically have like 2 categories of things, Bitcoin and Litecoin, because one person did all this marginal effort to create it was immense, and the marginal effort to create Litecoin was very de minimis, basically nothing. So this, and what followed was mostly more like that, where people putting in basically no effort, but being treated kind of in the same category as Bitcoin. So this, it's kind of unfair jumping in this category. Then eventually you had stuff that had some use for something. Even was very confusing and weird, but
Prime
so you had like
coin.
you had stuff like Primecoin where it would do something. You know, and you're like, is this worth it? But probably not. And then you had kind of a version 2.0 of that where you had stuff that was more complicated at least. So you had Counterparty, BitShares, Ethereum. That was like 2014, 2015, whatever. So the story is a lot of just stuff that was just total junk. And then the new stuff, BitShares and Ethereum mainly, the new stuff was very, very poorly thought out. And those people were not, they were really just changing all these things frivolously. You know, I regarded it mostly as a matter of luck that Ethereum triumphed, that people just wanted to kind of some alternative to Bitcoin, because they were a little worried about, I think, governance, scaling the block size debate, but basically governance. They were like, who's making the decisions around here, and what happens if there's a bad decision? We need a competitor. And they were like, well, this Vitalik thing, because it's Satoshi's anonymous, but Vitalik is right here, and he's like Satoshi was sort of seemed old because he would talk about Usenet sometimes. So what is this guy, like 500 years old? But Vitalik is
Hey,
young.
I talk about Usenet.
Yeah. And so there's kind of this contrast. I regard it as basically a matter of luck, that it could have been anything. So what I'm trying to say is mostly maximalism was just this point of view, this observation that everything else was just terrible, and that these people who they all had an agenda. They were all just trying to make money. That's why I need Vitalik to announce the definition on Twitter. He's the only one who can help resolve this issue. I never thought I would say that, but it's like the end of Back to the Future. He says, "There's only one man who can help me." The camera cuts to Vitalik now, yeah, and he is the definer. He has the He has the Genesis definition, so he must now define it as, because all I want to know is if Bitrefill accepts Ethereum, you know, if it legitimizes it as a payment method, legitimizing it as money.
They probably will, now that the Maxi has left Bitrefill.
No, but they already do. That's the thing, is that they would even give a thing about Lightning, and they said, because in the thing, this is how this came on my radar even. The guy, Sergey or someone was saying, Lightning is now up to about 5% of our revenue, which is about as much as we do in Ethereum revenue. And I was like, oh, what's the place where John Carvalho works has been accepting Ethereum this whole time and gaining revenue from it and legitimizing it as money by accepting it as a payment. So now people try to spin this around, and they say, we're doing them, it's actually a bad thing because we take it and we sell it. You know, I know, isn't that crazy? And they're saying, we legitimize it as money and we accept it, but when we sell it, so we're like taking it out of the ecosystem or something. They say, you know, we dump it or something, so it's worse. It's like, what is going on?
That is not how anything works.
that is not consistent with the original maximalist idea, where you would just be like, of course I won't touch any of that, because, you know, you wouldn't even think about it, because, you know, it's completely illegitimate it would be a thing that would get you laughed at. You'd be disqualified. You'd be laughed out of a conversation if you brought up, oh, like, what if we traveled back in time to like 2015 and someone at Blockstream said, oh, we should do a data feed for our bit shares. I mean, like, people would just be that person would probably be fired. You know, that was like,
yeah.
So
bear market though.
So, you know, but I'm not saying that it's anything that anyone is doing is wrong. I would just like to know what the definition is anymore. What is the definition? I don't know. That's why we need Vitalik. Vitalik is the only one who can help.
Well, yeah, we will.
He has to
put
give
out
us the measurement. I publicly call upon him to define Bitcoin maximalism to a greater degree of specificity than in the past. What exactly does it mean? The world needs to know. I need to know.
Vitalik,
I would like to know.
We need to know. We'll create a public campaign around this, Paul. Don't worry.
Any definition is fine, as long as it's consistent. I'll take any definition.
And also, before we go, guys, Ethereum Classic is actually $6.84. So there's what does that equal? What did you buy that? 25 cents?
25 cents. I don't know if I should tell you how much I bought. It was easy to get a lot of it at 25 cents. So yeah, if anyone wants to make, if anyone would like to try, Vitalik also, we have your attention.